Yo, what's good, guys? We are back at it again with another MLB The Show video for you guys, and today is the day I'm finally doing my hitting video. I'm finally happy with how I'm hitting in game. I'm finally hitting how I want to be hitting, so I think it's time to get the video out for you guys. If you are new to the channel and this does end up helping you, transforming your game, any of that, I would urge you to like and subscribe because we're going to be doing it all year. And yeah, guys, let's hop into it. So, first things first, equipment. So I am on a Power Fusion at the moment. I think it is better than what I was on before, which was an old Xbox One controller. If you are on a new gen Xbox, that controller is hurting you. There is a small solution. You can plug in a audio jack. You can plug up a headset into the audio jack, and it makes it a little bit better for some reason, but it's still not as good as if you were on PlayStation or if you were using a Power A. So something to think about for you guys there. Other than that, I would recommend if you are on a TV to play on a monitor. You can get a cheap 1 millisecond response one for probably under $40 on Amazon. If you are looking more like high tier than that, if you want to be able to play the game on 120 hertz, which does make a difference, it's not quite as big of a difference as if you were going from a TV to a monitor, but it is comparable. Those are definitely gonna run you more. If you don't know if you are eligible for it, number one, it depends on your console. So I would look up your console and see if it can support 120. And then other than that, it will be in general on TV display options on Xbox at least. I'm not sure about PlayStation. But you probably won't be able to play it on your highest resolution. So if you don't see it, try turning down your resolution. Maybe it will pop up. Other than that, it probably means you don't support it. So 120 hertz is pretty big. I would say a lot of the top 50 guys are on it. There's probably a few exceptions that aren't. They're just insanely cracked at the game. But me personally, I've made top 50 twice in my career, and last year I was pretty much the gatekeeper for co-op last year. So I am very good. I am on it. I imagine most people that are top 50 are on it. I haven't checked, but I'm sure most of them are. So game settings are our second part here. So audio and video, I like to turn off pretty much everything other than a little bit of crowd noise and sound effects. You don't really need the announcers in your ear telling you how bad you are. So for this, we'll be on All-Star, just because I do not hit great and talk great at the same time, if you couldn't already tell. So I can't be too locked in on like Legend or something. So you're going to want to be on Zone. If you are on Directional, you're not going anywhere. I would be shocked if you can make it to 700 rated online with Directional, and if you can, you're not making it past that. You are hurting your ability to play the game. You are going to get cooked online if you're playing Directional, and no top 50 player has ever been on Directional, so I would not be on there at all. Other than that, PCI Anchor, this is up to you. I don't use it at the moment. Maybe if John and Randy become more prevalent and there's a lot of lefties I want to use, then I would use it to anchor like up and in to stop them from just spamming sinkers and outlier fastballs lefty. But in general, I don't really find a need for it right now, and I might never. So, PCI, you're going to want this on. There are a small little population of players that do have theirs off and do prefer to play with it off, but I would urge you to learn with it on, and then you can experiment down the road, and if you like it being off, then that's you. But that is not me. So PCI centers, few good options here. Diamonds are very good, circles are very good, and the bat is very good. If you're using the bat, I would advise using no other ones. If you are using circles or diamonds, wedge is very good. Also, basic is very good. It's up to you. Me personally, I prefer just diamonds. No outer, because most people that do have an outer just have it fade when the pitcher starts his motion. So might as well not even have it on at that point. PCI color. There's a couple good colors here. Yellow's decent. White is decent. Black can be, but you gotta be careful for like night games or dark uniforms. So I prefer to stay away from it. And then cyan. Cyan and yellow are probably the two most common, and probably the two best, to be honest. So, opacity, this can be anywhere between 20 and 80. I probably wouldn't stray outside of those boundaries, but anywhere in there is great. There's great players where you can barely see their PCI. and there's awesome players where their PCI is basically not see-through at all. So that is up to you. Vibration, I would advise you to have this off because you might be batting in the 9th inning with 2 strikes and your controller starts shaking. You don't need that. That's not a good feeling. Cameras, this is going to be a prevalent one. Hitting, you are going to want to be on strike zone. You can kind of experiment with this. I will always advise everybody to just be on basic strike zone because it gives you the most zoomed in view. So it's going to help you the most with identifying pitches. If you are on a different strike zone, I would try to learn this one, but if you're just so used to your other one, it is possible to play on it. I think Chev or somebody plays on strike zone 2 or strike zone high. So it's very possible to be very good at the game and hit on one of those other cameras. But in general, I would advise you to be on the normal strike zone. Pitching. This can actually help your hitting. A lot of people don't think of this. This can actually help your hitting. I would advise you to be on strike zone. I know it's fun to be on pitcher offset broadcast and pretend like you're the pitcher, but that's not helping you be a better hitter. If you are also pitching from strike zone, it's going to help you see more pitches. Think about it. You are basically doubling the amount of pitches you're seeing. You're seeing your own tunnels. You're seeing how your own pitches move. You're picking up on your own pitches spin. You're basically doubling your reps. So it's going to get you better even faster. In view play offense, I like high. I know dynamic is fun. You get to see all the bat flips and stuff. But high gives you the best idea of if the ball you hit is going to be a hit or not, and kind of where you can get your base runner to before the ball gets thrown back in. So in general, I like this to be on high. And I think that's it. Real quick, I will mention turn off auto shift. It's not good. Auto shift takes away good hits from your opponents and rewards terrible hits. So I would rather get beat by somebody making good swings. That's just me though. So let's hop in. The first things first, I will go over kind of how you hit. So there's 2 main schools of thought here. There is tracking, and then there's how I hit. I don't know what you would necessarily call it. So tracking, you're kind of watching the ball out of the pitcher's hand, and you are adjusting your PCI in real time to where that's going. I don't hit like this. I am not very good at this. And I think there's kind of a cap to it, but if you are super used to it, or if you find this to be an easier way of hitting, then knock yourself out. The way I hit is a little, I think it's easier personally for me, but also it requires a lot of reps, and you might have to play the game a lot to kind of get the reps necessary. The way I hit is I see the ball out of the pitcher's hand, and I can identify the spin of the ball, so that's a lot of reps you're requiring right there. And I can tell you basically, not with exact precision all the time. Obviously, I get fooled sometimes. Every swing can't be a hit. But I can tell you where it is and when I need to swing just based off of what the pitch looks like coming out of the hand. So that's how I hit. You're kind of just guessing where the ball is going to be, and the more reps you get, the more accurate you're going to be at it. Like I kind of alluded to in the pitching camera thing, every pitch has a particular spin. I'll give you a little cheat sheet real quick, but you will need kind of reps because it's great, right? You could sit here and study all of them all day. And actually, when you pick that pitch as a pitcher, it shows you the spin that it has. So cutters, which of all these liking to throw a lot right now, look a lot like 4-seam fastballs. Splitters look a lot like 4-seam fastballs. Fork balls look a lot like 4-seam fastballs. And I think there's one other pitch. Sliders can. So sliders look a lot like 4-seam fastballs, but then their break makes them extremely obvious that it is a slider. And the cutter's a very similar way. It just breaks less and it breaks later, so it's kind of harder to identify it. That's one of the reasons cutters are so good online. So those are all of those pitches. Sinkers go well with circle changes. That's about it, honestly. Not much tunnels super great with sinkers. Screwballs do a little bit, but usually they're so slow that you wouldn't even worry about it. And in general, that's it. Curveballs don't really look like any other pitch. Curveballs are more about the release point. If you pick the release point right, then it can look like a fastball and fool somebody. But in general, they're always the worst pitch in the game. They're the worst pitch in the game every single year. And you can see I'm just kind of hammering these as of all these lollipopping them in. So stay away from curveballs when you are pitching, but this is a hitting video. So the next point of business is timing. There are two things that matter when you're swinging. It's timing and your PCI placement. So timing is determined by A, the speed of the pitch. I feel like that's very obvious for most of you guys. But B, where it's at in the zone. Vertically doesn't really matter. Horizontally, it is very important. Inside pitches have to be swung at earlier. If you played real baseball, then that might be obvious to you, but it's not obvious to everybody. You would be surprised. So inside pitches, you gotta pull the trigger on a little bit earlier. Down the middle is basically normal timing window, I guess is what you would call it. It's also the biggest. Down the middle pitches give you the biggest timing window, and they get hit the hardest. So in general, that's why you don't want to miss those when they're thrown to you online. And then outside, you have to be later on, because you have to kind of keep your barrel in the zone for longer, and you have to kind of push the ball to the opposite field. So if you think of pushing it, you're going to have to be later, and you are going to try to hit it down the line. You probably will sacrifice a little bit of power, but a lot of people are going to pitch you outside online. It's a very popular way to pitch, and in general, most pitches you see online are going to be either inside or outside. So the more comfortable you can get with those parameters, the better you're going to be. Second part of hitting is your timing. I will probably, or I guess, obviously I went over that piece of timing, but in general, timing wise, I will make another video on, because most top players use the player's swing to kind of determine their timing. You're not just sitting up here using your kind of internal clock to time it. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes the server's really bad, or you have a batter with a horrendous swing. But in general, they're using the batter's swing to time up the pitch. You see that just got absolutely mashed. So I'm using Buxton because everybody kind of has Buxton right now. So I think it's kind of the most universal. So other than that, I think it's worth mentioning that usually if you can get your timing right, most of the time the PCI will follow. Obviously, if you're lacking the reps and you don't have that attuned eye to be able to tell where the pitch is going, and you get completely fooled, then it won't be. But usually, as long as your timing is right, you will be on the pitch. You can see if I was earlier there, I wouldn't have dropped my PCI. That would have been probably a perfect, if not a very good swing. So timing correlates a lot with your PCI, and I notice a lot of times if I'm having a bad PCI online where I just can't quite find the ball, it's usually because my timing's off by just a hair, and that can impact your swing enough to where you aren't effectively able to time up the ball and put your PCI on the ball. So those two things are very intertwined. Ideally, you want to be perfect, but also with your timing, it's almost always better to be early than late. It's very similar to real life. You can pull a lot of stuff for home runs. You're not going to push a lot of stuff for home runs. That's why when you hop online in the show, most of the time you see a lot of just early, sometimes even very early home runs where your opponent pulls them. You don't see a ton of just lates unless you play at very specific stadiums with like short walls or that are max elevation. You don't see a lot of just late, very late, or late home runs. Usually you see a bunch of earlies, and that's because you're always pretty much going to pull the ball harder than you're going to push it. So in general online, you want to be early. Obviously you want to be perfect, but it's very difficult to be perfect. So you should always err on that side of being early, and ideally you always want to kind of have your timing attuned to that of the fastball. You always want to be looking for the fastball, which will bring me to my next point, which is kind of pitch priority. What are you going up there looking for? Me personally, I am always looking to hit the fastball. If you throw me a four-seam fastball that is flat, it changes a little bit on sinkers and cutters, but in general, if you're throwing me the fastball, I want to hit the fastball. It's the easiest pitch to hit. It goes straight. As soon as it comes out of the hand, you know where it's going. So in general, I always want to hit the fastball. The second pitch I always want to hit is any mistake pitch. If you are hanging a breaking ball, I want to hit it. It does not matter the count. We are not the Padres. Tatis does not have the bases loaded. I am banging it. If it's a 3-0 count and you throw me a circle change down the middle, I'm hitting it out. That is a mistake pitch, and you need to prioritize hitting those. Any hung curveballs, any hung like a splitter gets punished Think of pitches as having like modifiers, right? So four seams, they get hit hard in general, but they don't get hit harder depending on where you throw them, other than right down the middle. Right down the middle has a penalty for like every single pitch. But think of like breaking balls, right? If a breaking ball kind of breaks this bottom third of the strike zone, it's going to get hit harder. So you do not want to hang them, except for in very specific situations where you know what you're doing. If you are one of these guys that boot up online and routinely throw hung curveballs on purpose because you think it's a good pitch, then you're just not playing good players, because good players are going to put those out all the time, and they're going to have bad swings. They're going to put bad swings on them, and they're going to go because they kind of have this like imaginary modifier to where they get hit harder. So try to prioritize hitting the fastball, try to prioritize hitting mistake pitches, and then the third pitch I'm always looking to hit is the one that I'm guessing on. So usually this is kind of a reps thing too, but the more you play the game, the more you know how people want to pitch, the sequences they want to pitch, the locations they want to go to. So I'm always looking at the fastball, I'm always looking to hit a mistake pitch, and I'm always looking to hit the pitch I think you're going to throw. Like if I think he's going up and away fastball here, that's kind of the first thing on my checklist. And then if I can instantly tell it's not there, then I'm going to assume it's a fastball or it's a hung breaking ball. And if it's none of those, I'm not swinging. That's another thing. You don't have to swing. At no point do you have to swing. I see way too many people that are obsessed with hitting balls on the corner. They're hitting pitchers' pitches. You want to get batters' pitches. So like I can be up here and I can be looking for a very specific pitch, and if I don't get it, I can take it. That's the beautiful thing about baseball. You get 3 strikes. Unless you have 2 strikes, you don't have to swing at strikes. If somebody throws you something that you are not looking for, I see it way too much online, way too much. Somebody will be sitting like dead fastball, and it'll be like a 0-1 count or a 0-0 count or even a 1-1 count, right? If you're a hitter's count, you can't swing at a pitcher's pitch. If I'm looking fastball, and he throws me that low and inside slider, and I get surprised by it, and I swing very late on it and hit a pop-up or even a foul ball. Even if you do hit a foul ball and you get kind of lucky, you're still hurting yourself because you are giving the pitcher a strike for free, and you're potentially endangering your at-bat. You might hit a pop-up. So you don't have to swing if it's a strike. You want to swing if it's a pitch you're looking for. Way too many people online try to hit balls on the corner. I always say the best case of you hitting a ball on a corner a lot of the times is a perfect out, or a perfect single, or a perfect double. And that's the best case. There's significantly worse cases that can happen. Sometimes they will be home runs, but you don't want to prioritize those, right? I went back and mentioned the timing windows earlier. Down the middle has the best timing windows. That's where you're going to hit the most perfects. You cannot miss those pitches. Those should be on the top of your priority list. So you're not really like, are you really swinging at that pitch in a 0-0 count to start the at bat? You got to be smart about that type of stuff. You want to swing for pitches that you are expecting, pitches that you are anticipating, or right there, a mistake pitch. You can see I unfortunately didn't get to it, but it still got hit hard because it's still a mistake pitch. So imagine if the swing was better, it'd be a guaranteed home run. So that is kind of all the spiel I'm going to give on getting your pitch. You want to hit your pitch. You don't have to hit all of them. Until you get in a 2-strike count, you don't have to swing at any strikes. That's the beautiful thing. The next thing I'll go over is kind of mindset. So when I am holding the right trigger here and looking at all these pitches, you kind of have to take threat levels into account, and you kind of have to identify which of these pitches is going to be the most dangerous for you. And so for Evaldi, it is that kind of fast fastball. It's not super fast fastball, but it is kind of fast. It's the splitter because, right, the splitter is going to look like the fastball, and it's going to be a lot slower, and it's going to drop. And then we have the cutter, which is very similar to the 4-seam also, except it's going to run. It's going to go away from you. Maybe dodge your barrel, maybe find the barrel. So what we're looking for here is one of those pitches. He does not have a insane pitch to where you have to prioritize hitting it. But, right, if we think about DD, right, pretend this is Daniel Bard, and he throws a 99-mile-an-hour outlier sinker. Don't get me started on outlier. It messes with timing windows, and you have to be even earlier. So let's say it is him. The number one pitch I'm looking for is that inside sinker, because I know it's what they want to throw. And if you're sitting here letting the pitcher throw the pitch he wants to throw the entire game, you're going to get fried. You have to be able to take away pitches. Like, if he's spamming middle end sinkers with outlier, righty, you got to hit him eventually. You cannot just routinely let him get away with throwing them. You have to hit him eventually. There's a lot of people online that you will play that will kind of have a safe spot. Anytime they get in a hard situation, they will throw this pitch because they know it's hard to hit. And a lot of times it's a high and away fastball. So if you've been playing somebody and they're throwing the high and away fastball all game, and you are either getting bad results on them or you're just taking it because you don't want to hit it, it's not good. You got to take it away eventually. You can't just let the pitcher get away with what he wants to throw. It is, you know, baseball at its core is a 1v1 game against the pitcher and the hit batter. So in general, you got to win that game sometimes. You can't just let him, you can't concede part of the strike zone because you don't want to throw at it or you don't want to hit it. You can't concede a pitch. Like, if he comes up here and he has 4 pitches and I'm just giving him one of them, that's not good. You're not going to have a lot of success online. You got to be able to take it away. So, like, online, right? If I was actually playing an opponent using Evaldi for some reason, the number one pitch I'd be concerned about is a high end fastball. Righty at least, and probably lefty also. You know they want to throw that pitch a lot. You got to take it away, and it's got to kind of be the first thing that lights your eye up. So that's kind of threat levels. You have to take into account what a pitcher's best pitch is, and you cannot let them throw it all the time. Like if he was spamming that middle end cutter to try to steal strikes, right? The whole point, the only reason you're throwing that pitch is to steal a strike. You want the batter to read it as a inside fastball, and then you want it to leak across and steal a strike. If you're letting him do that, you're starting every at-bat down 0-1. Which kind of brings me to my next point. You need to be able to jump the pitcher. It's great to be patient early in games, but you shouldn't be watching balls down the middle, and you shouldn't be watching the ball that you're looking for go by. It's great to work the count, so you know you don't have to. So you don't have to see that pitcher for the whole game. But at the same time, if he's sitting here routinely making mistake pitches, you need to hit them. So kind of prioritize. Working the count is a great thing to do, right? And like I said, just because it's a strike doesn't mean you have to swing. Especially with the way pinpoint is this year, you can get a lot of walks. You can work a lot of walks just by being patient. But in general, you want to be patient until you get the pitch that you want. You don't want to be too patient. I see it way too much online. People that don't really want to hit. They just want to walk 90 feet and walk 90 feet and walk 90 feet and maybe put a good swing on the ball to drive in those runners. You can't live like that online. You got to want to hit. You can't be overly aggressive, but you have to want to hit. I see it way too much. People in a 3-0 count, they take one down the middle, and then they chase the next pitch, and then bang, you're in a 3-2, and you might as well have not worked the count at all at that point. So try to work yourself in those advantageous situations, and then take advantage of it. Because I see way too many people online that will work themselves into a 3-0 count, and then throw one down the middle. And you need to be punishing that. The last thing I will do here, I think I've covered most of all, but I want to preach some mindfulness, right? So if I have Buxton up and we have a runner on first with 2 outs, what do you think the opponent wants to throw at you? He wants to throw you a bunch of stuff low in the zone that you will roll over and he can get, or I guess it would be 1 out. Pretend it's 1 out and not 2 outs. But he wants to throw you a bunch of stuff low in the zone, kind of like that, where you will roll over and hit into a double play. You got to be mindful of that. In these situations, until you're 2 strikes, you kind of need to be thinking belt or higher. Belt or higher is kind of just a baseball saying, but in general, in the game, I'm kind of referring to staying away from this bottom third of the zone. Because that's what will happen, right? You will kind of be on top of them and you'll miss the ball. So, in general, try to prioritize hitting pitches up in the zone when you have a runner on first, unless you have 2 outs. 2 outs, everything's fair game, obviously. You can see our gameplay is lagging a lot right now. I'm not sure what that's about. But yeah, guys, that's it. I want to preach some mindfulness when you have runners on base. I see way too many people ground into double plays constantly, and it's killing your innings. And that's just kind of the last thing I wanted to mention. So, hopefully you gained something from this knowledge dump. There will be more videos in the future going over hitting stuff. I'm sure I made a ton last year. Definitely want to make one on swings and maybe even some situational baseball. But in general, that is the hitting video. It was the best video last year. I imagine it'll be one of the better ones this year. Until next time, peace.